That should be a lot easier to sync up. You're going to have a lot less noise.
Oh, man, no.
You need a $400 microphone.
Which is why I can breathe into it.
Yeah, sounds like it. Absolutely. I will be breathing that hard this evening regardless, though, because, yeah, it's damn allergies or the super flu, whatever the hell's killing me right now.
That's fair. I found out today, I've been living in this house for 2.5 years now. I actually have an air vent in my room, and I have not changed the air filter at all. I tried seeing the size because it's like really small. It's like a 12 by 12. And when I was like trying to poke it, dust. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's why I can't ever breathe right whenever I wake up.
Yeah. Plus, you got an animal in the house, constantly tromping around, spilling other stuff, and you got a dog too. So I mean, comparatively,
very
sorry,
true.
Josie.
Oh, I was gonna say sorry, Destiny.
Take it either way you want to. Yeah. Play it how you lay.
She's an animal. Strike that from the record.
Hence the flea collar, but
oh, that's not a flea collar.
Okay, someone's into a little James bondage at the evening time. Good.
I'm spicy today.
It's a spicy cannelloni.
The spicy meatball.
All right. Well, I don't know if we're technically in or not.
I don't know.
It's a problem I experience often, as I'm sure you could estimate. But
is it in?
Is it in? I can't feel anything.
Oh, well, I'm done. Sorry. And I'm Michael.
I was done before I started, unfortunately. The internal shoot, as it were.
Oh, jeez.
My money shot as a refund. Looking forward to that. My poor mother. Someday, she's going to stumble on these things. She's like,
no. Oh. Why is there thousands of them?
The fruit of my womb. The fruit of my loom. Either way. Well, okay. I have enjoyed a delightful tragedy yet again. Melissa and I are officially living the money pit life because last night our hot water heater began to just violently orgasm onto our garage floor. And so I've spent about 45 minutes to an hour moving boxes around and then using a box that had already been soiled to create a makeshift sort of funnel to push all the water off of the ledge it was sitting on into the floor of the garage to let it sort of spread out, diffuse, and evaporate. And but we thankfully, the property management, for once, responded in an appropriate amount of time, and they got us a new hot water heater 24 hours later.
Oh, so, wow. That's a record.
Yes, I'm very impressed. So we have a brand new, top of the line, top of the world, top of the morning special hot water heater that will keep me in a lobster-esque sort of hue from this point forward, because I take exceedingly hot showers.
You and Destiny both. I can't. If it's anything, like, I will get out of the shower. It could be lukewarm water. I will get out and I will be sweating. And well, I'm like, what's the point of the shower?
But it's a clean sweat at that point, as my uncle once told me when I was younger. He's like, yeah, it's all fair game in the shower. You can shit in there, you can piss in there, and then, as you're rinsed off, you get out and it's clean. It's not gross, grimy sweat. You're getting that fresh, exercised pore. So you're getting the good toxins out, friend. That's the need of the shower.
I never thought of that.
As a man who sweats constantly, as a free perspirer by trade, I will tell you that yes, you just kind of you acclimate. And the shower for me, a bath is a necessity, but unfortunately I don't have that in this home any longer. So if I can't have a sauna, I'm just going to stand in the shower and just bake for a good 5 to 10 minutes.
At least in Arizona, it's pretty easy to get hot water. You just got to run whatever, especially if you got exposed like water lines and everything like that out in the air.
Or a box out in your garage, because the water, even though it had been sitting on the floor for 2 hours and smelt like a bog, it was still very warm, which was really exciting. I enjoyed that immensely.
Oof.
Those excited molecules, they stayed in motion for quite some time. And apparently that's handy because we're going to be having some science discussion this evening, from what I've been told.
Pretty decently sciencey. No heavy water. No water.
Well, I just dealt with the heavy water. I got through that already.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need a repeat.
Yes. Well, maybe we could carbonate it instead.
Ooh, okay. Instead of aerate it. Oh, because you were aerating it. Yeah.
Yes. So now I'm going to carbonate it.
There you go.
Or carbon date it, perhaps.
Ooh, there you go.
I'll pick it up at the house in my Ford Focus. We will go on a lovely whirlwind tour of the town. We'll take it to Pizzeria Uno or Olive Garden or one of those fancy Italian restaurants. Make love to it while using a condom and not placing my digits into their rectum. You know, gentlemanly things.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't know where you're going with this, but this doesn't sound as fun.
It's an old Dave Attell bit.
Oh, I was like, this is a good bit.
It's delightful. It's like, all you ladies out there think as though these beautiful men, these Brad Pitts and Leonardo DiCaprio are just going to wait around and somehow find the time in their busy schedule to come take you out on a date to someplace fancy like the Olive Garden or Pizzeria Uno, take you home and make love to you while wearing a condom while not fingering your asshole. Well, they don't have the time. I do. And speaking of having the time, if you can't find it, by the eternal, behold, it is the Disinformed podcast. I'm Shane.
And I'm Michael.
And you better get used to hearing that sequence, friends, because we have officially reached Survivor the home game, and we have voted 2 people off the island, and I don't think we're going to get back to it.
Oh, man. This is how it feels to make it to the last.
You have that one little, I forget what it was called, the Infinity Stone, whatever the hell the thing was, that saves you from elimination for this week. You cannot be voted off.
I got the rose. I'm next up.
God, give me Flavor of Love before you give me The Bachelor.
I mean, that's fair. Flavor. Whoa. Fever Flav.
Fever Flav. Flavor Saver Flav.
Today I'm feeling more Fever Flav than Flavor Fave.
If it was Jesus, it would be Savior Flav.
Man, thinking no cheap Flav. I'm thinking like Dollar General. No, it's not good. It's not good.
Okay,
strike it from the record.
All right, it's been stricken. The clock has struck. And speaking of being on strike, I think we've got a couple of folks that are presently on strike here, but they didn't know that it's a right-to-work state here.
That it is.
No one's getting compensated, and we are the union trustees here, apparently. But for those of you who are unfamiliar or who thought we were serious last week when we said it was the last show, and the numbers would reflect that some of you took us seriously, what we typically do on this show is we like to delve into random esoterica, and in the course of explaining it, we lie occasionally, and then the co-host has to ferret out the fact from fiction as they listen. But if we don't get it, I assure you, we will give you the answers at the end of the episode. We will fill in the crossword puzzle, so you do not have to, and you don't leave disinformed. But what are we going to be doing this evening, my coiffed, pompadourish friend?
Oh, thank you for complimenting it. I spent 2 minutes combing my hair just to get it. Don't look at my beard, though. It looks disgusting.
I'm not exactly sure that's a compliment, but...
I take what I can get.
Okay.
I'm desperate.
I mean, my beard has also got my natural little lilt is coming back in, so I have a very interesting lion's mane thing that happens. So, and I don't mean the mushroom.
Ever since I started growing out my beard in high school, I can't get it out of my head. My band director came up to me after a summer break. I think I've mentioned it before. And the first thing he said to me was, "Your beard looks like pubic hair." And I'm like, okay, cool. So I just, that is stuck with me since. And it's been decades as far as I'm concerned.
You issued a false statement by saying that with your beard, you can't get it out of your head. In fact, you can. It is showing on your face as we speak. So I think you're doing quite well.
Fair point. I understand that now. Whew. So I don't have a little intro to get into the episode itself.
Oh my dear God, what's happened to you?
Yeah. I'll admit I kind of wrote this way different than I usually do, and that's mostly because I wrote it this morning. So
okay, I appreciate your effort.
It was proofread by my fiance, so if anything's wrong, it's her fault.
Your fiance, the animal.
Yes.
Yes.
Animal from the Muppets, actually. That's exactly what she said when I handed the phone to her to proofread.
When I handed her to the phone. Well, I have the tattoo to prove it.
It is known.
Quite.
So I will be talking about poison Halloween candy, the moral panic, or as I like to call it, based off of a paper that I read, Halloween sadism, which I think is much better descriptor than poison candy.
I much prefer poison ivy myself, personally.
Oh, well, who doesn't?
But scantily clad DC characters are always a favorite of mine.
Especially from Batman and Robin. Uma Thurman?
I'm going to just patently disagree with you on that one, friend, but I like Uma Thurman. There were some aspects there that I think were quite... I said aspects. I actually enunciated the word as opposed to you, but yes. There were some folks, Bane in particular, flexing them aspects on that movie, but yeah. I'm going more of like the Arkham games Poison Ivy.
Yes, that's true.
More curves than a California highway.
Whew. Man. So I went through several iterations of this intro, and to be honest, none of them really grabbed my attention. Whether trying to reminisce about checking your bags of candy for poison, or talking about the new drug craze sweeping the nation, fentanyl. Nothing really got me into the Halloween mood, you know? Nothing terribly spoopy. Oh. So, instead of being creative, I decided to straight up steal the first opening paragraph from one of my sources, titled The Razorblade and the Apple, The Social Construction of Urban Legends, by a Joel Best and Gerald Horucci. Also, before you ask, there are 4 lies.
Bless you. But I was also going to say, yes, The Razorblade and the Apple was the title of the first dating manual that I ever wrote back in high school. So.
Better than the roofie in the apple.
No, I mean, we're making some allusion to sort of breaking the Christianic chains that we were bound with about original sin. No.
Oh, okay,
Eat the fruit.
It's worth it. So...
Especially the worm inside.
Oh, man, that's the best part. Slurp it down like a thing of spaghetti.
Lady and the Tramp? No.
Slimy yet satisfying.
Well, Hakuna your tatas and let's get this thing on the road then.
Anyway, so the paper, The Razorblade and the Apple, The Social Construction of Urban Legends, a recently written paper that finally did someone no one else had done in the decades prior, try to explain the cause behind the poison Halloween candy moral panic.
It did someone, huh?
Yes.
Oh, who did it do? Who did it do?
No one else had done it, and that's why it was alone. So I guess I'm incorrect. No one had done it.
He's a she.
It's
a Mrs. Doubtfire reference that does not age well in the day of people talking about being misgendered. To use the phrase "he's a she, he's a she" is probably not going to be one that we're going to be well remembered for. But
fair,
yes,
fair.
Robin Williams is dead, and so is chivalry, so it's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. He actually was the reason behind the chivalry's disappearance.
Mm-hmm. It was caught up in the fur on his arms.
Ooh. So, the 1970s witnessed the discovery of a frightening new deviant, the Halloween sadist.
Or Jeffrey Dahmer. Also, that's more the 90s, but yeah.
Yeah, I was also going to say
he was a teen when he was first killing people in the 70s. So
yeah, I was like, he started in the 70s, right?
Yeah. So I mean, technically, it's tomato potato.
But he wasn't doing it necessarily around Halloween. He didn't really have a time and date for it. So I guess.
Oh my God! Now I'm envisioning Jeffrey Dahmer as Michael Myers, just standing in a tank top in the side yard of somebody's house, just dun dun dun. John, are you back?
By the way, I actually did see, what was it? I didn't see Halloween Ends, but I saw Halloween Kills recently.
Yeah. it has some satisfying moments.
Yeah, I think actually that that summarized my whole enjoyment of that movie. There were some good moments.
Yes, it's just much like intercourse with me. It's like, yeah, there were some satisfying moments, but
a lot of blood, a lot of gore.
Left a bad taste in my mouth.
And there was a thing with a grandmother getting stabbed. I don't get it.
Well, I mean, that's just lending into John's porn proclivities again, but...
Oh, no, I forgot about that. The guilt.
Gushing Grannies, Volume 7, Halloween Kills.
Well, Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers and I mean, then you can add incense.
Well, I mean, if you want to burn
incense
it
to make it really nice,
if it's a satanic ritual, yes, add the incense. But the is the sound of the plastic on the lovely couch as they're having sex when you're in your 60s, trying to avoid getting any of the fluids on everything.
Just clean those.
It locks the freshness in. It's a Ziploc on the couch.
The discovery of the Halloween sadist who gave dangerous, adulterated treats to children. Each year, Halloween's approach brought warnings to parents. That pump red apple that Junior gets from a kindly old woman down the block may have a razor blade hidden inside. These are all quotes that they have from other newspaper articles. Mm-hmm. If this year's Halloween follows form, a few children will return home with something more than an upset tummy. In recent years, several children have died, and hundreds have narrowly escaped injury from razor blades, sewing needles, and shards of glass purposely put into their goodies by adults. That's from Newsweek 1975. The first one I'll come back to because I actually talk about that more at length. And then the last one.
I mean, some of it's just Albert Fish as well. I mean, he did it to himself.
Mm-hmm. And then the last one, it's Halloween again, and time to remind you that somebody's child will become violently ill or die after eating poison candy or an apple containing a razor blade. And this was a more recent one from the LA Times in 2005. So,
Cripes.
Yes, that's right. They used the term Halloween sadist, a mythological stranger who is all about chaos, whether placing needles and or razor blades in apples and magically sealing them up, because that's something I've always thought about when hearing about razor blades. The fruit, poisoning the fruit, so it's not obvious that something. Oh, sorry. That was a semicolon. Whoop.
I'm an agent of chaos.
Sealing up the fruit so it's not obvious something was shoved in there, to drowning candy in rat poison, arsenic, etc. in candy bars, and perfectly rewrapping them in their original packing without any evidence of tampering.
Some of your turns of phrase murder me.
Hey! As you can tell from my exaggeration, these stories are urban legends. While there are a few true stories that can be associated with Halloween, we'll find that they don't really fit the myth of the Halloween sadist, and that most people were tricked into taking part in, let's say it all together, y'all, another moral panic.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
Not again.
Dun, dun.
I hadn't recovered from the last one.
The last several. Since this isn't our first rodeo, I figure we skip much of the history behind this panic for now and get into the nitty-gritty.
Or the horse stick.
Or the horse stick.
Yes.
Or the ginger going inside the other part. Anyway, let's pretend that we were the public at any point from the late 50s to today and ask ourselves, what should we be scared about again?
Nazis, Russians, conservatives,
neo-Nazis,
football players who kneel during, the national anthem,
football players who pretend that they were in law enforcement with their plastic badges,
Hillary Clinton's emails,
Pizzagate,
toe fungus, ball fungus, mildew in pubic hair. I mean, there's no end to the things. I mean, if Truman's to be believed, or, no, it wasn't Truman. It was Johnson. We have nothing to fear but fear itself.
I think that might have been...
It was FDR.
JFK. Yeah, yes, you're right. I was thinking something... Yeah, I was thinking the
This is how you know I've been talking about
Yeah.
presidents too much, because I just started cycling through them, and I was like, Chester A. Arthur.
Whoa.
Herbert
I don't think
Hoover.
he said
No.
it. I don't think he had time to say anything. No, I'm thinking Zachary Taylor. He was the
Even
one
better.
that didn't have time to say anything except for his thank you speech, because that's when he got pneumonia and died.
Yeah, you know. Taylor, Tyler, tomato, tomato.
Speed record, speed run the presidency.
If only. I think Trump did that. It's just he was using speed while being the president. Different.
True. That's why his hands are so small. Well, fear not, random member of the public, for I have the resources to give you another reason to clutch your pearls, to get a case of the vapors, and to grab your metaphorical pitchforks.
Ooh.
The article, yeah. The article that people claim really set the stage for this moral panic is the good old New York Times, with the beautifully named 1970 article, "Those Treats May Be Tricks," which I actually had already quoted from. That was the first quote that I read.
How marvelous.
Let's see. Let me read some snippets from the article, since their alarmism is far better than anything I could do.
I'm intrigued.
Quote, "Those Halloween goodies that children collect this weekend on their rounds of trick-or-treating may bring them more horror than happiness. Horror. Take, for example, that plump red apple that Junior gets from a kindly old woman down the block. It may have a razor blade hidden inside. The chocolate candy bar, their air quotes, not mine, may be a laxative. The bubble gum
Or Dookie.
or dookie. It's either before or after the laxative. Who knows?"
Ooh, there's a pleasant thought. If it's got peanuts, it might not be a Snickers bar.
Uh-oh. Let's see. The bubble gum may be sprinkled with lye. The popcorn balls may be coated with camphor. You could tell that this is a little bit more old-timey.
Arsenic and old lace.
Yes. And the candy may turn out to be packets containing sleeping pills. Within the last 5 years... Yes.
That would make parents elated if you were giving their children sleeping pills.
Oh, boy, I can finally sleep because of this annoying brat.
I'm actually going to reconsider what I do for my lovely Halloween treats now.
Give this to your parents. They'll thank me later.
Indeed.
Within the last 5 years, the number of incidents involving poisonous or otherwise harmful treats given to young hobgoblins on Halloween has been growing at a rapid rate. Quote,
Not my favorite Spider-Man villain, but it'll do.
I know, exactly, right? It's like, come on, at least give me Green Goblin or the Vulture. I always find the Vulture funny.
Ooh.
Just a very old man that just likes flying around.
As a large man with the increasingly dry skin, I can identify with the Rhino.
And you got a good Russian accent, so that's good too.
Indeed.
Skipping past some notes about the New York State Health Commissioner and
or Steak Health Commissioner.
The New
Just
York
goes around
Steak.
Poking the strip steak.
This is a New York strip.
Oh,
Check's the
this
next
ain't
one.
juicy enough at all.
This
got
is more
spit
like
on
a
this.
brisket. Ugh.
Brisket
This is
on
not-
a biscuit. That's what I have.
Hey. Past some more stuff talking about those who do mischief the night before Halloween. The article then gives us the sweet, sweet information we desire. Examples. Quote, "Not too many years ago, red-hot pennies that had been heated in an oven were often handed out to trick-or-treaters by sadistic householders. Today..."
How are they handling them? Do they have tongs?
I have no idea. I feel like it would be a dead giveaway. They have like an oven mitt in their hand. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, here you go."
They're strolling up in asbestos gloves to hand kids piping hot pennies. Just stand still, Johnny. Let me get my tongs.
It's okay. I can't touch. I'm allergic to copper. That's why I can't touch them. But you're free to touch them. Don't worry about the color. I spray painted them to look like they're really hot. You can play a trick on your friends.
If you're going that far, just drag them in the house and get them with a branding iron or something. I mean, have a good time and enjoy it.
Yeah,
savor it.
Exactly.
A sadist doesn't want this thing to be just like, fapping in a bathroom. They want to take a moment, really appreciate the pain.
Yeah, exactly. What are the kids going to do? They're going to drop it into their bag, and it's just going to melt the chocolate, and they're not going to burn themselves.
Or it burns through the bag, and then you get the glee of watching all their candy spill on the ground, I suppose. But for me, if you're just dropping a hot penny, it's a waste of good suffering.
Exactly. Today, the most common mistreat seems to be the apple that has more than just seeds inside. Last year in, I'm going to say this word wrong, Oneida, I think, New York.
We'll go with that. Yep,
Okay.
Oneida is perfectly reasonable to pronounce.
It's spelled
that.
like the French fries that you can buy at the grocery store.
Orida, yes.
Orida. Oh, is it Orida or okay? Anyway, in this New York State town,
We'll go either way.
If
If it was a borough, it could be a New York City town.
no, I think it's upstate. It
yes,
sounds
it
like
is.
one of those fancy ones. Yeah,
I have encountered this on many a kitchen nightmare because they have just a wealth of things that Gordon Ramsay tore into up there.
Oh. So, in this town that I dare not repeat, someone gave 3 children trick-or-treat apples with sewing needles in them. And in nearby Ilion, don't know which, the father of a 5-year-old boy found a razor blade in an apple when he peeled it for the child.
Now, I'm with you on needles make sense.
Yes, needles
Because,
do.
yeah, you can hide a little tiny puncture mark much easier than a giant razor blade situation.
Yeah. Like, I don't understand, like, oh, there's a giant cut in this apple. Like, if I see an apple that has any sort of cuts, regardless of how they're caused, I'm not going to eat it because I know it could be, like, something could have gotten into it.
Now, professional wrestlers, whilst prepping a blade to cut themselves, do snip portions of a razor blade so that it's a little more easy to conceal in wrist tape or something like that. Some wrestlers even kept it in their mouths, which I don't know how you would do that and live. But
especially considering how they were being thrown about everything.
Yep.
Ooh.
Apparently, you could just wedge it betwixt your cheek and gum as though it were a little snifter, a wacky backy, and keep it there. But I would never try that.
No, thank you.
I think you could conceivably get a little snip of a razor blade and then try to work that in maybe closer to the core. But again, like this is a significant amount of effort to something that
you won't even be able to see. Like,
yeah, it makes no sense to me. But I'm also not a sadist.
also true. Let's see here. The rest of the article asks to psychiatrists why someone would do such a thing, aside from their, talking about sadists' probable deprived childhood. One says, quote, one reason the incidents might have been increasing in the last few years was because of the permissiveness in today's society, which he has said resulted in people getting away with more and more violence. So you can kind of tell the theme of this article when you're asking psychiatrists like why someone would do this, and it's probably their childhood, and also people get away with a lot more in today's society.
Here's the thing, friends. We've moved into a state with our permissive attitudes that has allowed us to just follow our baser instincts and show breasts in public and color your hair and not be 75. Like, I don't understand why. The compulsion, just put on your tight pants, your Depends, stroll out into the world and spread the love of Jesus instead of teenage thighs. It's much better this way.
Please tell me that's a quote.
Nope.
Oh no. So the article itself that sounds pretty alarmist, right? There are a lot more articles that are similar in nature and a lot of fear mongering, so we can move on.
We are big on hyperbole in this country, particularly because, again, like, even as we run through this, a lot of this, it's journalism, right? And they want to sell papers.
Yep.
So if you're trying to evoke some sense of dread or foreboding, ominous headlines are obviously going to get folks to, penny up, pardon the pun, as opposed to, just say like, all's well. I hope you have a blissful Halloween. Grandmother gives fresh baked home goods to children. Like, no one gives a shit. You got to forebode the end of the world in a headline, and then everybody wants to buy a copy.
They were doing clicks before clicks were even a thing.
It's not rocket science, or
nope.
It's not brain science or rocket surgery, as I've been known to say from time to time.
Both are true. Both are true. I tried looking for evidence of those two cases, but I couldn't find any record of that. Granted, I didn't access any local newspapers that were in either city, but it's safe to say that no kids were probably harmed in this, and we're going to kind of investigate why.
We're back to the Richard Gere gerbil allegations again of just, oh yeah, some hospital admitted him. I swear.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Now, I can't say there weren't any cases of something like this happening in the whole country, right? So I figure it's time to actually talk about the few cases that are inexorably linked to this moral panic.
Well played.
When I say a few cases, I really do mean a few cases. The paper that I opened this episode with, The Razorblade and the Apple, really wanted to codify this particular moral panic. Surprisingly, unlike the Satanic Panic and the D&D Panic of the early 80s, there wasn't an eye-grabbing, immediately sensationalized story that made national headlines in those days. For those who either forgot or didn't listen to those episodes, episode 72 for the Satanic Panic and episode 151 for the D&D Panic, both panics were started by easy-to-remember events. And I use that as a pun. Michelle remembers the book recounting satanic abuse and mandatory reporting laws for the Satanic Panic, and then James Egbert III's disappearance from his college for the D&D Panic.
And if you don't know these things, you can go check those episodes out in the archives. They're available for you whenever you want to go peruse.
I'm still very proud of my Satanic Panic episode.
As
the
well you should be.
one, not so much, because I was kind of talking about other stuff, but the Satanic Panic, I feel like, is one of my nice ones.
Yes. Michelle and the water, remember.
The only two things that need to and will.
Indeed.
The Razorblade and the Apple tried to determine what catalyst, if any, really spurred on the panic about the Halloween sadist myth. And to be honest, they couldn't find one. I will be the first to say, given that I read their entire paper, that they did do their due diligence. They read through 200 daily newspapers with roots going all the way back to 1959 to the year before publishing. And for each paper that they searched through, for each paper, they searched through all their records for the term Halloween. So a lot of them had indexes or indices that, any sort of articles that had the word Halloween in it, they would look through those and read them.
They were rocking microfilm back in the day, so you could do so. All those wonderful sequences that we see in films constantly of people sitting in a lovely library basement, just whirling their way through on the good old fiche machine.
And the nice part is they even mention, they gave credit to the New York Times because they actually have a separate paper that's all about the index that actually has those sort of terms already kind of figured out, at least based off of how I interpreted what they said.
Old school databases, yes.
Yes, it made it super easy and very, very thorough. Let's see here. And for some... And for some, they even read through the first few days of November just in case they miss anything where they talked about, some cases that didn't have Halloween in them. They focused primarily on nationally distributed newspapers. While each paper focused on their own regions, all major newspapers involved would also report on the big, attention-grabbing stories, which helped verify how important these stories were to the public. Out of all these newspapers and all the years investigated, the researchers found only 76 reported incidents of so-called Halloween sadism.
And this is from 1959 into, what, the 80s?
No, I said it was present. It was a recently written one. Yes,
okay. So this is like 2006? I think 2006 was the...
that was at least the quote that they opened with was 2005, yeah.
Wow,
so,
okay.
Yeah, so 76 cases of that. I'd lost my spot because I wanted to double check that.
That tends to happen. Go ahead.
With 1969 to 1971 and 1982 being the biggest numbers of alleged incidents. The panic had resurged in 1982 in part because of the Tylenol scare that happened the month prior, where, for those who aren't aware, someone had replaced several acetaminophen pills with potassium cyanide, leading to 7 deaths. And then there was some more copycat killings after that. No one had been charged or convicted of the poisonings, which drove the public into a conspiracy, paranoia, that sort of thing.
And this is why we now have safety seals on the bulk of our materials, so that you can avoid that, or you can see if it has been punctured or tampered with.
Clearly. Now, this isn't to say there aren't more stories on Halloween sadism, mind you. Every year most likely featured cases of all newspapers reminding parents to check their candies, yada, 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 just like I read at the start. They only wanted to find ones that had actual reported incidents. So probably every newspaper was like, check your candy, Halloween, yada, that sort of thing. But
it's the same scare tactics as like, wear a condom. Yeah,
exactly. I don't listen to scares. Either scare, whether the scare to wear a condom or the scare that happens when you don't. Out of those 76 incidents, only 20 reported injuries. and out of those, only 2 involved deaths, which we'll cover later.
Okay.
But those could not be blamed on the mythical Halloween sadist, which we'll, again, see later. The researchers reason that, quote, it seems unlikely that newspapers would choose to print accounts of minor incidents while ignoring more serious crimes. This impression is bolstered,
Either way.
Further by the frequent appearance of stories, often from different states, reappearance of stories, often from different states about other Halloween tragedies.
I write sins.
I do acetaminophen, I do bolstered, I can't do tragedies. Children struck by cars and other accidental deaths, people murdered when they opened their doors, expecting trick-or-treaters, racial disturbances, vandalism, and so on. It is therefore unlikely that the list of 76 incidents excludes any other or any additional fatal instances of Halloween sadism. So
presumably.
They did their due diligence. Like, they made sure they tried to cross-reference. If there was a big national incident, they would have been found out. It would have been reported in any one of those newspapers.
Oh, certainly. Now, here's the question. Are you getting, tears deep here? Is 76 a fake number?
No, 76 is actually true.
I was going to say, I wouldn't be shocked if it was lower even. But, I mean, now we're not discounting things. I was thinking, and I don't want to get ahead of you either.
No, you're fine.
But there's nothing that, if we're going anecdotally speaking, if you think about what might actually be a root cause for some of this as well. And so for Halloween, when notably trick or treat does involve a lot of trick, how many folks get frustrated with a local ne'er-do-well? And then, am I getting ahead of you?
A little bit, but you can continue.
We'll get
it's
to it.
fine.
But yeah, no, it's just, I think that would be a motivator for me. It was like, okay, these kids have been an annoyance, and I'm going to, these particular people deserve a little comeuppance, and then you devise a plot. I have an anecdotal tale so my mom, when she was in high school, of course, this is back in the Byzantine era, so home ec was a thing that was forced on most ladies so they could learn to be good homemakers. And so whenever they were making cookies, naturally, a lot of the men folk would come clamoring to get a little sample of a sweet treat. And so my mom, at some point with some of her friends, devised a way while making cookies to take rabbit pellets and blend them in with the batter as opposed to chocolate chips and serve them to the football team who would constantly come and hound them. And there's one individual in particular who apparently ate like 4 of them and was just smiling and had like hair from the rabbit pellets just hanging out of his face. And so these are the sort of tales that, to me, is what it's evoked what I'm thinking of, people who would do this to children, and then it becomes hyperbolized into something different. But I'm sorry that I jumped ahead of you, but I was thinking, as like, if this is happening, that's probably what I'm assuming most of this will be.
Yeah, these are reported incidents. They aren't necessarily like, oh, this person was arrested for X. Like,
or corroborated at all.
Yeah, someone reported that they found razor blades, something like that. And then the paper actually does go into a lot of detail about, well, kids know that you get attention when you report something like this because they tell you to report something like this. And so kids start making up stories because we already kind of learned that from the Satanic Panic.
We're back in the witchcraft trials again. Yeah, same difference.
Or that too, yes. Yeah. Exactly. Let's see here. So, yeah, not really an epidemic of razor blades and drugs and candy.
Right.
However, there are several deaths improperly attributed to several Halloween sadists, so I think it's time we really dive in further and look at those two.
Okay.
I have to say my title for this next section because I was quite proud of it.
Okay.
Getting candy cucked by a few bitches. Yeah, and so I say that because I'm going to give a trigger warning for children dying.
Not bitches.
Yes, not bitches. Unfortunate children. It's not many, like I said too, and I won't go into gruesome detail. But it's important to give the trigger nonetheless, given my past record with triggers or lack thereof.
I was going to say it's fair game on gore where I'm involved here as well. You just apparently some of our more squeamish friends do need to get a heads up from time to time.
You can skip ahead for the listener. You can skip ahead 5 or 10 minutes if need be. The first, and the one that drove up the number of reports of Halloween sadism around 1970 was the unfortunate case of Kevin Toston, a 5-year-old from Detroit who died after finding and eating his uncle's heroin. The family tried protecting the uncle by claiming the drug had been sprinkled in the boy's candy. This important fact was given little coverage in follow-up stories when the truth was actually revealed, because most people reported immediately, because you got to be first to get that news out there, and so they reported that it was sprinkled on candy as opposed to being found in the uncle's house.
Okay, so I'm going to be a little incredulous about it was sprinkled on the candy.
That's what they claimed. They claimed that it was sprinkled on the candy.
How does that accidentally happen? Like, you just have a bowl of, hard candy like your grandma used to keep in the foyer, and he just, accidentally bumped some of his heroin onto it?
No. They were saying it wasn't found at the house. They said they got it from another house they found heroin.
They tried to shift the blame entirely. Not just the uncle's running around like, spiking all of his kids, relatives.
It's busy. Oh, actually, no, that makes more sense with cocaine, not really heroin, because you got to kind of shoot up. Anyway, I was thinking...
you can snort heroin. That's something that's done. You shouldn't.
No, you shouldn't. But I'm imagining he's like, oh, I got to get ready. Halloween, a trick-or-treater, as he's running down, the stairs or something. Oh, some candy got on there.
And then cut to the kid Uma Thurman out on a couch somewhere waiting for John Travolta to come save him.
Yeah. So he was, eventually arrested and all that other stuff. But because this was found out later, a lot of newspapers, if they did issue a correction, it was, back page, no one noticed it.
Yeah, long past the point of relevancy.
Yes, yeah. The second case follows an 8-year-old Timothy O'Brien from Deer Park, Texas, who died.
What a lovely little Irish lad, Timothy.
He was a lovely little Irish lad, who died in 1974 after eating a cyanide-laced package of pixie sticks. A subsequent police investigation eventually found that the boy's father, Ronald Clark O'Brien, had put the cyanide in the pixie sticks as part of a life insurance fraud. Yes, and tried to hide the evidence, going, if you're already in, you might in for a penny, in for a pound.
Okay.
And tried to hide the evidence by giving out more cyanide-laced pixie sticks to other trick-or-treating children.
So, was he going to take them himself? Or he was trying to kill his kid for life insurance?
He was trying to kill his kid for life insurance.
Oh.
Yes. And to hide it, that it wasn't him and that it was an unfortunate incident, R.I.P. in peace, thoughts and prayers, he tried giving some more cyanide-laced pixie sticks to other kids.
So to just be a serial killer as opposed to one-off.
Yeah, like I said, in for a penny, in for a pound.
Wow, okay.
Thankfully, no other children consumed the pixie sticks, and the father was found out.
Who puts life insurance on their children?
Someone that wants to make a lot of money from them by killing them.
Man, you need to have a bunch of kids in order to get that to pay off, because how much could accumulate over the course of, 6 or 7 years?
I have no idea.
That's a terrible
he probably bought it out. Yeah, exactly. As soon as the kid was born, let's do it.
That's the worst Johnny Appleseed metaphor I've ever heard in my life.
Jesus.
Just randomly going around. It's like, hey, you want to have a kid? Let's get him insured. Man. Let's J-Lo or Booty here.
So he was later found out, sentenced, and executed 10 years later in 1984.
And how did they seal the pixie sticks back up? Did he make his own?
It did not say.
No details.
Nope.
So if I call that bullshit, we're gonna.
It's all true. Unfortunately,
Yikes.
It just did not say. Yeah, I kind of wish it did, just so I can have a better understanding. But I can also understand why they wouldn't, just so it's like
we
talk about making an atomic bomb, but you can't actually talk about making an atomic bomb.
Yeah, we don't need the anarchist cookbook on how to poison children. We're okay.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. In both of those cases, it was not some stranger, but a family member. While one was the grossest kind of negligence there was or is, the fact is that both deaths could not be attributed to some random and or indiscriminate murderer, as is told in the urban legend. Now, these weren't the only cases that got nationwide attention. There are some additional cases wherein no child was hurt, and I'm going to talk about them real quick. In 1959, a California dentist, William Shine, gave candy-coated laxative pills to trick-or-treaters, but no one was seriously hurt.
Was he dipping them in chocolate?
I guess so, yeah.
The
Chocolate
literal
or...
Hershey squirt.
Oh, shit, you're right. Oh, no. He was later arrested and charged with outrage of public decency and unlawful dispensing of drugs.
Outrage of public decency?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't know what that meant, but apparently you can get arrested if you piss off enough of the public.
We've heard about Jim Morrison getting that as well, so I just, wasn't sure if you were trying to throw that back at me or not.
I wish. Let's see. And this is now going back to what you said prior. 5 years later, and on the other side of the continent, a disgruntled Long Island. I was thinking Long Beach.
Okay, I was like,
Island.
Or other side of the incontinence, depending upon what your laxative joke is there. But
oh, that would have been so better. So much better. A disgruntled Long Island woman gave out packages of inedible objects to children she thought were too old to be trick-or-treating.
Okay.
Such inedible objects were steel wool, dog biscuits, and ant poison pellets, which were clearly labeled with the word poison.
Well, dog biscuits are edible.
Yes. Maybe back in the 60s they weren't.
Might call it bullshit on dog biscuits.
No, you can, but it's
yes,
true.
I'm calling. Okay, well,
yeah,
steel wool.
Yes, steel wool.
How do you hide
poison?
How do you hide steel wool as a candy?
They were packages, so it was like a little box or something, and you open it and it's rat poison,
hopefully
dog
they're
biscuits,
just
and
indiscriminately so they're not really intended to eat it, just be foiled.
No, it's saying, oh, you want to trick or treat at this age? Well, here you go. Here's some steel wool, you little shit.
It's like the people that pretend that they're giving you a box of nerds, and then you really look hard and it's raisins.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
I'm with you. All right.
But unlike giving raisins to kids, she was actually charged with child endangerment, understandably so.
Yes.
She probably would have just been, angrily yelled at by parents, but, adding ant poison pellets, probably not the best idea to do.
But furthermore, who isn't disgruntled living on Long Island? You tell me.
That's very fair. I would just be upset just because I'm alive.
Their bees are like irradiated over there as well, we know.
Mm-hmm. That is true. That is very true. Red bees.
Grenadine-soaked nightmares.
Oh, God. Other unfortunate deaths occurred during the act of trick-or-treating, but were not linked to any evidence of candy poisoning. In 1990, Ariel Katz, a 7-year-old from Santa Monica, California, died while trick-or-treating. Initially blamed on poison candy, it was later found she died of an enlarged heart. She just cared too much. Yeah, I know that was really bad. I added that. Yeah, exactly. Boo. A final one involved a four-year-old from Vancouver, British Columbia. Apparently, they don't have names in Canada because she didn't have one. Yeah, that was their name. Who died? You. Anyway, sorry. A 4-year-old who died after eating some Halloween candy. It was later found it wasn't the candy, but rather a streptococcus infection. So,
strep throat killed him? Well,
yeah.
Streptococcal pneumonia, I suppose.
I would presume so, yes.
Or a strep tease, if you will.
Oh, God. This is how it feels to be dead.
Kid was a strepper. It's delightful.
Whew. There are several reasons as to why this moral panic really spread in the early 70s, and it ties back to an earlier episode. The article that I keep referring to, The Razorblade and the Apple, gives several really good reasons as to why such a panic existed. First is the overall societal strain that came from threats to children, or the growing belief that children were no longer safe in the United States. The article points to something that we are already familiar with, the increased rate of abuse reporting, that came from mandatory reporting laws, as well as the media response to such events, as I had covered in the previous episodes, like I said earlier. Additionally, the threat to children wasn't restricted to the young tykes, but to the older ones, specifically the ones who might adopt radical views and or experiment with illegal drugs.
Like you do.
Mm-hmm. Again, this was the late 60s, early 70s, so...
And there's a time and a place for everything, children, and it's called college.
Exactly. It is a bit different with these newfound, air quotes, newfound threats to older children, since these parents are more worried about the betrayal inherent in choosing different political beliefs and also the betrayal in doing drugs. In fact, the researchers went so far as to search for cases of Halloween sadism involving hippies giving drugs to kids, and they only found one, compounding, and which was interesting that it was only one, considering that they did go all the way back to the late 50s.
And furthermore, but to the stories we talked about previously with Courtney interjecting as well, is I'm going to keep the drugs for myself. They're not just going to go around giving them to random kids.
Exactly. That's why the one kid that unfortunately passed wasn't given it by a stranger. It was because they found their uncle's stash. So, so let me restart.
You're fine.
In fact, the researchers went so far as to search for cases of Halloween sadism involving hippies giving drugs to kids, compounding on a fear that the 1970s LSD was being distributed on pictures of Mickey Mouse, which was another urban legend, which a reoccurring character on the show was referred to for more information. They actually said, read this for more information. Friend of the pod, Jan Harold Brunwald.
Oh, no.
Yes, he actually was a reoccurring character in this paper because he, he developed a lot of the ideas and terminology behind urban legends.
Spent a lot of time, yes.
Exactly. So he was referred to extensively whenever they talk about the urban legend aspect of this panic.
Or aspects.
Aspects,
and,
yes.
And gerbils, yes.
And now, before I start jacking Bruvald, okay, so I have to ask, was it Bruvald or Bruvond?
Brunwald.
Okay.
It's just Brunwald.
Because in the paper, it was ND, not LD. So I thought that was really weird. But it was pretty much, unless there's two people that wrote extensively about urban legends with the first name Jan and middle name Harold and Harold. So
okay.
Yeah. The second societal strain the paper discusses is the fear and rise of crime. While most instances of violent crime and Violet,
he's turning violent.
She's turning violet. While most instances of violent crime involve those who know each other, the fear...
And Augustus Gloop and Candy.
Oh, no.
The chocolate waterfall returns.
Oh, no, not again. It's just laxative. It's all laxative.
It helps me to get more candy into my mouth. That is the chocolate river. That is what I've created.
Better than the Hershey River from a couple weeks ago.
I am the man who is eating his own tail. It's delightful. I am a human centipede of my own design.
I'm a beautiful centipede.
I'm a beautiful centipede. Ooh, chocolate. Let me help you to finish it.
Oh, no. So while most instances of violent crime involve acquaintances or people that know each other, the fear of crime instead focuses on those unknown and unnamed individuals who emerge out of the shadows to end your life.
I think there's something interesting to be said about this starting to really coalesce in the 70s, because we're thinking also about this is when we start hitting the major prominence of serial killers, and not the least of which being Son of Sam, which was literally just a random person just assaulting random people. There was no forethought. It's purely a crime of, availability and convenience. So it's interesting that this kind of, I imagine, helps to kind of contribute to that national consciousness.
Oh, yeah.
Starting to get more paranoid about what strangers are capable of.
That's why I made that mention of the unknown person coming out of the shadows. And then kind of also speaking of the serial killers and slashers, this fear found expression in the newly emerging mad slasher films like the classic 1979 Halloween. And finally, the third strain is the mistrust of others. This is a big topic to cover. I don't want to cover it in too much detail because it involves a lot of talking about societal norms and other things that went on in the 60s and 70s. But given the movement of minorities from rural areas to the city and the subsequent movement or counter movement of the middle class from the city to the suburbs, those who faced a growing isolation, those who moved faced a growing isolation, which evolved into a general mistrust of their neighbors. And if you cannot trust your neighbors, how can you be so sure that they won't try and poison the candy they hand out?
And we can kind of think also the Kitty Genovese of the whole thing as well. I think that probably is a contributor, because there is a depersonalization of those even in the urban sector as well, as because you know, I'm not going to stick my neck out for the person who's getting stabbed to death out on the front stoop. Like,
someone else
on the
will
fourth
do it.
floor here. I'm just yelling out the window for people to shut up. Like, that, I think, is the most horrifying aspect of the whole thing, is that someone was just outraged at ruining their night that someone was being stabbed to death. Like, these things, obviously are a major part of the melange that makes up this paranoia and this depersonalization.
Yeah. No, that's actually a good point. I didn't even really think about Kitty. Yeah, shoot.
Well, I always think about Kitty. I love cats.
Now, I wish I could say that this moral panic has eventually gone the way of the dodo, but alas, that would be a terrible lie. So to close, let us talk about the newest iteration of the Halloween sadist. The one who...
QAnon!
No. The one who gives extremely powerful narcotics to children. You have probably heard all about the newest fad, the hot new street drug, fentanyl. A super potent opioid. Wow, I don't know why I tried writing that. A super potent opioid, about 100 times stronger than morphine and about 50 times stronger than heroin. It is used to create counterfeit pills of more mainstream drugs like Oxycontin, Xanax, Adderall, and Viagra. It has been all over the news, especially...
Viagra? Come on.
No, not Viagra.
Get out of here. We've already been sponsored by Screw Chew. We've dealt with this before.
That's why I had to throw that in as a lie.
I appreciate that. While we're here, was the strep also a lie?
No, that was also true. That was true.
All right. I'm ticking things off in my head as I go.
No, you're good. You're good. It has been all over the news, especially because of the typical style fentanyl is distributed. It is usually found in small bluish-colored pills, to which some believe it looks like candy. Now, I'd argue that most medications in tablet form could look like candy if you look at it the right way, but that's just me.
Well, they had that old PSA that we've talked about previously, whereas the pill bottles or the pills themselves singing "We're not candy."
Mm-hmm, exactly.
Yeah.
So, hand it out without the pill bottle, it's a lot easier, a lot harder to discern.
Everything looks like candy if you want it hard enough.
True. Anyway, moving on from the normal bluish pills, it was only a month ago that we got our first look at rainbow-colored fentanyl pills. When about 300... I'm sorry. Restarting that. Whoop.
Okay. I was like, were they celebrating Pride Month or...
Yeah, actually, yes.
Okay, that's reasonable.
It was only about a month ago when we got our first look at rainbow-colored fentanyl pills, about 30,000, when several hundreds of thousands, I think that's the correct way to say it, I guess, yeah.
You can go either way, but yeah.
Several 100,000 of those of just fentanyl pills were seized at the border entry point in Nogales, Arizona. So in addition to the several 100,000 of the normal bluish pills, they also found ones that were rainbow colored. This was actually, like I said, it actually happened in September. On September 19th of 2022, Fox News reported the seizure, making no mention of Halloween candy, surprisingly so, because they're usually one of the first to fearmonger.
I'm sure they blamed it on Biden's inability to police the border properly.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely true. And then Tucker Carlson probably just stared at the camera for 5 minutes with that weird look on his face that like he's trying not to fart or shit his pants, but he's letting it go slightly just to release the pressure.
See, that's the funny thing is he's only worked for them for about 2 years. The rest of it is they just have him on a quick tape loop that just gets dubbed in. And they just try to make sure that his clothing matches up enough that it's like you don't notice that's why he's just staring blankly. It's
that makes
not really
so
him.
Much more sense. Let's see here. And so making no mention of Halloween candy. And then the very next day, we already had...
The cat came back.
We already had politicians making alarmist statements about it. On September 20th, the Republican National Committee chairwoman, Ronna McDaniel, responded to accusations by former U.S. President Bill Clinton that Republicans enjoy fear tactics to win elections. So McDaniel answered that it was in fact the opposite, that Democratic legislators were the ones putting who scare voters with their policies. So already back and forth about this. So
yeah, no, Republicans just scare us with their candidates. It's entirely different.
That's actually a very fair point. They don't need scare tactics when they just have to be like, look at this guy. He thinks bad air blows over from China.
He thinks a Big Mac is a healthy meal choice.
He thinks several. Oh, that poor toilet. So she says, no, we don't scare tactics. The Democrats do. And then she immediately puts her foot in her mouth by saying, quote, just last month, 2,000 pounds of fentanyl came across the border. That can kill 500 million people. Citation needed for that, by the way. I don't think that's true.
Yeah, definitely.
We're coming into Halloween. Every mom, I'm British now.
Mom.
Every mom in the country right now is worried. What if this gets into my kid's Halloween basket? The rainbow fentanyl. What if my teenagers get this? So
gonna have a good time
until they die.
Hey, the Bette Midler did that to us in a movie. I mean, we can deal with it.
That is a fair point.
Dance until you die.
So then on the other side, the Senate Majority Leader, the Democrat, was seeking $290 million in funding to fight the fentanyl. I don't know what I'm going. Was seeking a fuckload of money in order to fight the fentanyl crisis. During a conference that he was where he was making the initial request, he held up pictures of candy and the rainbow fentanyl, saying, "Halloween is coming up. This is really worrisome and really dangerous." So it's not just one political party being like, what about the children and rainbow fentanyl? It's everyone.
Now, who was this person?
This was Chuck Schumer.
Okay.
Yes,
I was going to say, no name was provided, so it makes me somewhat incredulous about whether that actually happened.
I always forget that he exists, and then I figure just saying the Senate Majority Leader, it is true, he did say all this, but I just left out his name for simplicity's sake.
Well, to avoid saying the word Schumer.
Schumer.
It's a humorous Schumer. It's not a Schumer.
It's not the Schumer. Okay. Not to outplay politicians, our friends in the media later involved DEA administrator, so that's Drug Enforcement Administration administrator.
Administrator.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In the dictionary under redundant, it says C redundant. Yes, indeed.
Ann Milgram to speak, who told NBC Nightly News that the rainbow colors are a marketing ploy intended to attract more potential young drug users and generate more profit for themselves.
Did you say the person's name was Ann Milgram?
Milgram, sorry.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, how very appropriate for a drug enforcement agent to be named Ann Milgram.
Yeah, that would have been a little too on the nose. I feel like she changed her last name just to be like, this is too much of a pun. I'm sorry, guys.
This is my partner, Jed Microdose, and we're here to talk to you today about ketamine.
Ooh. Now, to be fair, she didn't say that drug traffickers were planning to give the pills out for free and trick young kids.
But she did not say it either.
Yeah, she didn't need to because people were like, well, if they're marketing to young kids, what better way than free samples? And that is where I will end my semi-lucid rant on another moral panic. One that, as long as children like candy, people like drugs, and no one trusts each other, will never end. I actually came up with a good ending instead of just being like, and that's it.
Oh, is that what that was?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
Relatively good. A little bit.
Well, I'm not entirely shocked that I didn't do well on picking out lies, because that has never been my forte. I think percentage-wise, I am probably in the lower hemisphere of this particular group. But
you actually were sniffing very close to the other three.
Well, I usually do, but My sniffers broke.
Yeah. So, do you have any other stabs or?
I have spewed out what little things I could think of as I was running through, other than boner pills.
Okay.
But,
I mean, I like giving easy layups because I feel like
easy
it's
lays
fun.
as
Yes.
well. Yes,
Mm-hmm. With that fentanyl based Viagra.
Or along with dip.
So the first lie, I mentioned the razor blade and the apple. I mentioned that it was a recently written paper that finally did something that no one else had done. That they actually published this paper back in 85, which it was funny because you were like, and they published it back in 85, right? I'm like, well, you said the 80s. So
it sounds reasonable. Like, that is research that I would imagine would be happening in the 80s, because this is kind of when things were really kind of at a fever pitch. So like, it hasn't been happening as much in the contemporary climate, but
it's more year-round drug panic as opposed to Halloween.
Well, and also everything is morally reprehensible these days, and that's on either side.
Yes.
I mean, sensitivity is just overarching in waves these days. So I get it.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to sound like someone who lives in, a state where libertarian biases are present, but who knows?
The second lie, which you also kind of sniffed at as well, there was no quote from the LA Times in 2005. It was actually a well-known and nationally syndicated advice columnist, Pauline Phillips, a.k.a. Dear Abby, in 1983. Yes. So
time traveling on me. Okay. Yes.
And then the last one, I mentioned that they look through 200 daily newspapers. They actually only looked through 4. But those were nationally distributed. They looked through the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Los Angeles Times, and the Fresno Bee for the Dear Abby column, which is also, like I said, nationally syndicated.
Okay. So you're basically still trying to debunk their research by saying they weren't actually thorough. Well, they just scrubbed where they felt they would get the most hyperbolic news sources.
In the case of they figured that if it was a big, since they did cover a lot of minor incidents in those newspapers, that
the hell do people mining for ore have to do with anything?
Sorry.
Spelunking is a wonderful pastime.
It is. It is fantastic. That's actually going to be my next episode.
Ooh.
I'm kidding. But because they were reporting minor incidents, so incidents that it didn't involve death, probably involved miners in the mines.
Typically.
Miners of both types.
Indeed. So, children miners.
Even better. I mean, it was back in the day, so who knows?
They also get into tight spaces much easier.
Mm-hmm. And they got little tiny hands for grabbing things. So, you lose a couple fingers, you actually get easier reach.
Oh, so we know what a certain individual who hosted a celebrity game show was doing in his misspent youthful years.
Ooh. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So because they were reporting these not intense incidents, and it wouldn't make sense if they were ignoring more, big cases of this sort of thing happening. And they even reported some of these cases had actually occurred in places that they weren't regionally reporting. So they said there were at least a couple of cases that were featured in the South, which wouldn't have been featured in any of those sort of things. So
the idea being that you report the earthquake, not the aftershock.
Yeah, exactly. Like, everyone will report the earthquake. Maybe some of the people in the local area will report an aftershock.
Yeah, but it's a reverberation.
Yeah, exactly. And no one will pay attention to it anyway, because who cares? Except for the people dealing with it. Yeah. So
I will stand in my doorway, however.
Of course. Always do that. Or under a table. Or move the table under your doorway. Even better. And then you got the last one with the Viagra. So.
Well, thank goodness for small favors.
And that was it.
It was a hard lie to determine, I will tell you that.
Let's see. Opioid. I don't know if Xanax is an opioid. Actually, only Oxycontin is an opioid, because I think Xanax is an antidepressant, so it does something else. And Adderall is an amphetamine. not an opioid. So
you're talking to a babe in the woods over here, friend. I'm just completely starry-eyed and have no clue.
I only know about Adderall because I only know about Adderall because I took something similar for that for my ADHD. So there's that. Because the thing I took was designed so that it couldn't be abused like Adderall. You couldn't sniff it. You couldn't
it couldn't be abused.
Yes, yeah.
Like me.
Exactly. I am an abuse. That sounded a lot better in my head. But.
Well, I am an abuse sieve. Just passes right through me.
But yeah, I got that motivation to write it because of what Courtney said about the history of Halloween the other day. And so I was like, well, shoot, let's go for it.
Hey, follow every little, whimsy where it finds you. Or every, what is it? I have completely lost.
Follow every, no, not lead.
Something door.
Yeah.
Yes.
Open
Curiosity door or whatever
Slam
the
the cat in the door. Something like that.
Yes. Adore the door.
The doors. Great.
Adore the door
band.
Salesman. Ray-Ban?
Stick your foot in the door? Stick your
Let my
cat's
love
foot.
open the door.
Yes. On your love
to your
gun?
cat. No. I want no kiss. I'm Julia Roberts.
Uh-oh.
I'll do anything you want, but I don't kiss.
No pretty woman.
On the mouth. Yes. Well, pretty woman, won't you fart on me? It's been a delightful episode. As always, thank you very much for the research. It is appreciated. And I hope everybody out there has enjoyed it as much as I have, because it was a delight. And if you are, feeling that same sort of joy and exuberance that I am, you can tell us so by doing a little like and subscribe, rate, and review. We would love to hear from you. Of course, you have got the link tree in the show notes. It'll take to all of our relevant socials. We are, of course, releasing new episodes every lovely Monday morning, winging your way on your preferred podcast provider app, so you can find us there. In addition, we have got all the YouTube fodder that you can shake a stick at, or a, fentanyl pill, whatever your preference.
Cyanide lace pixie stick at.
Ooh, there's a band name for you.
Cyanide lace pixie sticks. They're like a heavy, a heavy metal cover, cover of, I guess, the Dixie Chicks or something like that.
Oh,
I didn't say it was good.
Thought.
I did not say it was good.
In fact, there's your trouble. Three really avid Dixie Chicks fans that are laughing at the fact that you didn't realize that was a song, but there we go.
I'm glad to entertain.
Cowboy, take me away. But we appreciate you all being here, obviously. Go check us out on YouTube. Michael Shorts are running wild like Hulkamania.
Woohoo!
And they cannot be stopped, even if you try. You can't just wound them. You have to shoot to kill. And so, if you need more fodder than that, I don't know what to do for you, because we're absolutely spent. But I think that is going to officially wrap this rascal up, just like a child's trick-or-treat bag, or their favorite costume mask, or the plastic bag they put over the child's head when they want to insist it needs to go to sleep.
Shh, only dreams.
Yes, no breath. And so, for the Disinformed podcast, this evening, or this morning, or this afternoon, whenever you might be listening, it doesn't matter, we're indiscriminate. We go well with any time of the day. AM, PM, 7-Eleven, Circle K, Maverick, a Quick Trip. I mean, just whatever you're...
Oh, wait, no, that one closed.
The Stop and Go.
Yeah. Gulp and Go. Oh.
Ooh. That's a dating strategy, friend. But in any event, I think we'll quit with the nonsense. But thank you for being here. It's a delightful time, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. So for the Disinformed podcast this week, I'm Shane.
And I'm Michael. And zippity zoop, we're out of here.
Check your packages, friends.